Snow strikes the viewport like thrown sand. Wind crawls through broken seals. The landing party holds the corridor. Helmets click. Bolts test. Hearts keep time. Brother Sergeant Kalen lifts 2 fingers. The squad advances. "Mark the air," Kalen says. "Thin," says Brothers Voss and Rael together. "Mark the noise," Kalen says. "Low pressure in the walls," Rael says. "Something breathing." They reach a door of black alloy. Frost blooms along the frame. Lights blink in a foreign rhythm. The apothecary studies the panel. "It is not Martian," he says. The door opens of its own will. Beyond it, a room of angles that bend sight. Snow shows its back to the glass and keeps moving. Heavy breathing fills the space. Slow, measured, metal under flesh. A figure steps out of the dark, tall, cloaked, mask like a skull of polished obsidian. Red light swells on a blade that is not a blade. It hums like a reactor taught to sing. "Contact!" Kalen says into the Vox. The Vox answers with a hiss and a shadow of words. The figure raises a hand. Kalen rises with it, against his will. His boots scrape the floor. "Resist!" Kalen says. Bolter's thunder. The red blade moves once. Shots bend. Shots fail. Shots die as sparks against heat that should not exist. The figure moves through them like water through reeds. Not rage, not haste, only purpose. Breathing in, breathing out. One by one, the sons of Chthoniya fall. No screams, only cut signals and the thud of armor that will not rise again. Kalen sees the door. He sees the vox plate beside it. He takes one breath that belongs to him and not the room. He drives his gauntlet into the panel. "Mayday," he says. "Unknown foe. New physics. New blade. New mind. Mayday." The line ends. The breathing remains. The message reaches orbit like a spark in old fuel. A bridge goes quiet. Officers trade looks and do not move. Maloghurst the Twisted leans on a rail. His cane clicks once. "Play it again," he says. They do. Abaddon stares at the void. He does not blink. "Unknown foe," Maloghurst repeats. "New physics. New mind." Abaddon nods. "Wake the council," he says. Wind draws lines on the planet below. White deserts, black mountains, cities under ice. In the warm belly of the flagship they meet. Abaddon, a Mirandus of the fleet, Erebus, invited because he appears where doors are not locked. Maloghurst, 3 captains with clean armor and careful eyes. A remembrancer named Sira, because Maloghurst wants a civilian to hear the tone of the day. Hololight builds the planet in the air. Her name is not yet given. The warp feels different, says Amarandus. Brighter, thinner, as if something else is using it without calling it by name. A rival choir, Erebus says. Malugurst waves that aside. Describe it for soldiers, he says. Amarandus tries again. It answers, but not to us. Not in the way we are used to. Saphira speaks, voice small but steady. What if it is like gravity? She asks. The same field, new shape.
Abaddon looks at her. He does not smile. He looks back to the planet. What killed our brothers? He asks. Breathing, Malagurst says. They all listen to the recording again. Erebus closes his eyes like a man in prayer. He is not listening to the breathing. He is listening to the silence between. There is will there, he says, old, disciplined, bound into a machine.
Is it the Emperor? One captain asks.
His voice tries for careful and lands on afraid.
No, Abaddon says. He would know.
Is it aligned with him? Asks another captain. Malagurst taps the rail. It killed our men, he says. Which proves nothing, Erebus says. It proves only that it has work to do. Abaddon lifts a hand. Debates end. We send scouts, he says. No more squads blind. No more pride. Eyes first.
Down on the planet, the storm wears itself out. Snow rests. Wind moves on to insult other windows. The building stands. Its lines are not human. Its power sources purr in a key that makes the teeth ache. Inside, the figure in black walks alone. Panels rise when he lifts a hand. Drives hum when he nods. He does not speak often. When he does, the air...
Pause short, resource. Pause short, he says, to no one seen. Pause short, iron. Pause carbon. Pause crystal. Pause organics, minimal. Pause short. Pause. A reply answers from the walls. Pause. It is not a voice. Pause. It is a permission. Pause. He turns to a viewport and watches the snow set. Pause. Short. Another empire? Pause short, he says. Pause. His tone makes it not a question. Pause. He looks up. Pause. He looks through the atmosphere into the dark. Pause. He feels motion. Pause. Ships. Pause. Thousands of lives. Pause. A will like a storm held in a hand. Pause. He breathes in. Pause. He breathes out. Pause. Pause. Short.
The first scouts do not die. They hide. They listen. They taste the air and send home the shape of it. Factories, one says, not ours. Ships, another says, growing from docks that were not there yesterday. Patterns, says a third, triangles inside circles, circles inside triangles. Describe a ship
Abaddon says of a vox.
Flat, the scout says, wings like blades, engines that glue like eyes, no throne signs, no Aquila, no runes of Mars. Numbers. They reproduce without yards, the scout says. Plates form where the air is coldest, frames fall from gantries without cranes. Automation, says Amarandus. Obedience, says Malachurst. Craft, says Sarah, quietly. Horace hears in his chamber.
The sound runs through stone that knows his weight. He listens to the Mayday 3 times. He listens to the reports until they are dry. He rises. He does not put on a helm. He wants his face to be seen by those who will see it today. He walks to the strategium. Men and not men fall silent.
War Master,
they say. He looks at the planet. He looks at the arcs of ships that now move from her poles. He looks at the dockyards that were not and are.
We do not know this foe, he says. We will. He gestures. Lights crawl across the void. Projections meet projections. Paths cross. We do not commit, he says. We test. We measure. We take prisoners if we can. We count. Then we decide. Erebus smiles. He thinks of gods. Horus does not look at him. He stops at a frame that curves into a circle the size of a hill. He reaches out with something the planet does not have words for. The warp answers. It answers like a bell hit with a soft hammer. Too bright, too thin. He adjusts. He layers his will over it like a glove on a tool. The circle warms. Steel remembers that it was once ore under...
A young technician in a gray suit approaches with the slate. Pause. Her hands shake. Pause. She does not know why she is here. Pause. Short. Lord. Pause short, she says. Pause. He turns. Pause. She does not look at his face. Pause. She looks at the chest, where the breathing lives. Pause. Pause short. Status. Pause short, he says. Pause short. Frames at 50%. Pause. Fields at 10. Pause. We can test in 9 hours if the coils do not. Pause short. Pause short. Pause. He lifts a hand. Pause. She stops. Pause. Pause short. You will be calm. Pause short, he says. Pause. She is calm. Pause. It is not magic. Pause.
Test in 6, he says. Yes, Lord, she says. She does not remember how to be afraid until she leaves the circle. Then she stops and leans on a rail and breathes like a person who almost drowned. The council of Horus grows loud. The sons of Chthonius snarl. The word-bearers smile and bleed talk. The iron warriors ask for coordinates and tonnage. Amarandus points to a vector. He is building without yards, he says again. Summoned support? A captain asks.
No, Sarah says. She has learned when to speak. He is teaching the world how to build him. He is writing on the air. Malaghurst nods once to himself. She is useful, he says softly. Abaddon leans in. Is he the Emperor? He makes his voice flat on purpose. No, Horus says. I would know. Is he aligned? Abaddon asks. Horus watches the hololith. Ships fall into orbit that were not launched. Stations wake where there were clouds. He is aligned with himself, Horus says. Skirmish. Not a war. Not yet. 3 raiders slip down the dark side of the planet. They find a convoy of flat-winged craft. They engage. The first raider burns a wing, and it falls in a thin line of fire that looks more like a thought being erased than a ship dying. The second raider locks on a central spindle. His target turns without turning. A force grabs the raider's nose and tips it into the cold like a hand setting down a toy. Physics fault, the pilot says. Then he says a prayer with no God in it. Then he says nothing. The third raider survives. He brings back numbers. He brings back the feeling of being watched by a gaze that lives inside metal and knows no guilt. Abaddon studies the data. Sarah draws the ship on a glass panel. She draws corners sharp. She draws lines that make the eye nervous. Ugly, Malaghurst says. Honest, Sarah says. The meeting is not by chance. It is arranged by decisions that look like accidents when you are small. Horus descends in a storm that respects him. He walks a plane of ice that holds. His guard sets a ring and then widens it again, because the air wants more room today. The black figure arrives without visible ship or sound. He steps out of dark that did not look like a door until it opened. The two stand within hearing. They do not shake hands. They do not bow. War Master, says the black figure. Lord, says Horus. They speak, and the wind holds. You found a wrong corner of the map, Horus says. I draw my own, the figure says. You killed my sons, Horus says. They raised weapons, the figure says. Do you serve the Emperor? Horus asks. I serve order, the figure says. The same claim, Horus says, and the corner of his mouth lifts. Your Emperor is a tyrant, the figure says. On that, Horus says, we might agree. The wind returns. Snow touches their armor and robes and finds no purchase. What do you call your power? Horus asks. The Force, he says. Horus tastes the word. It is plain. It is almost kind. Our ships feel you in the warp, Horus says. Yes, he says,
It is different when you touch it, Horus says. Yes. Why? I learned under another sky, the figure says. I serve another memory. You could serve this one, Horus says. I do not serve men, the figure says. Horus laughs once. Good, he says. They stand and measure one another with instruments that do not need eyes. Name, Horus says at last. Vader, he says.
Horus nods. He has a name now for the breathing.
Withdraw, Horus says, or stand aside while I take this world and fold it into what comes next. No, Vader says. Horus smiles for real. Then we test, he says. Minor battle, not a war, not yet. Titans do not walk, legions do not commit, gun lines speak, shields fail and stand again, snow melts into steam and drifts back down as sleet. Vader moves like a cut of night. He lifts a hand and a tank lifts with it and forgets gravity for a breath. He closes that hand, and the tank creases and sleeps. Sorcerers of the Word-Bearers meet him at the edge of a cryo-field. They chant names, they lift sigils, they bring old knives to a new argument. Vader answers with focus, without words. Their rights slide off. They adjust. They start to learn him. Horus steps where the snow is honest. He tests the air with a sweep of his will. He feels the force answer inside the warp, like a stream inside a river. He pushes. The stream bends. It resists without anger. It yields without fear. You are not a god, Horus says under his breath. I am not, Vader says, though he should not hear it. They meet in a ring of clear ground that keeps clearing as if it wants to watch. Blades do not cross. Axe does not fall. They speak and they push with the tools they trust. You could be my general, Horus says. I am no one's, Vader says. You think order means silence, Horus says. I think order means survival, Vader says. You think mercy is a lie, Horus says. I think mercy is a tool, Vader says. They press. Snow hangs in the air like dust. Sound stutters and returns. Horus has the edge, not in strength, in ground. In numbers he can call and not call. In patience, learned from a father he now hates. Another day, Vader says. His tone reads the sky and writes the answer. Another day, Horus says. They step back. Neither turns his back. The ring of clear ground ices over as if embarrassed. In orbit, the debate roars. Traitors argue like priests. What is he? Who made him? Who does he serve? Is he aligned with the Father? Is he a tool of the White Palace? Is he an echo of an old war from the dark between stars?
None of it, says Horus. He does not shout. They still stop. He serves his own edict, Horus says. What is it? Malighurst asks. Survival at any cost, Horus says. Then he is ours, Erebus says, smiling too much. No, Horus says, he will not kneel.
Pause short. Kill him. Pause short, someone says. Pause. Pause short. Break his docks. Pause short, says another. Pause short. Take his workers. Pause short, says a third. Pause. Pause short. Test. Pause short, says Horus. Pause short. Hold. Pause. Gather. Pause. Then decide. Pause short. On the planet, Vader does not sleep. Pause short. He kneels in a room of dark light. Pause short. He reaches through a field that is not his. Pause, the warp resists. Pause short. It is thick with stories that shout. Pause short. He ignores them. Pause short. He finds the clear places. Pause short. He lays bridges. Pause,
He breathes out, and the room warms. A map builds around him. Not stars, tombs. He has felt them since he arrived. Not like life, not like death. Like a decision that refused time and waited at the edge of it. He reaches, he asks, he does not beg. Something answers under the ice. Metal wakes. Memory wakes with it. Parley, Vader says. The planet rolls under hissed wind. Snow rests and lifts and rests.
Deep below, a city opens its eyes. Green light tastes the air. The Death Star is not yet a star. It is a circle that gets truer each day. It hangs over the valley like a frozen moon. Its plates grow where the cold is sharpest. Its frame hums in a tone that makes teeth ache, and men turn their heads without knowing why. Sarah stands on a ridge and draws it. Her hands move slow. She takes breaks to breathe. Malighurst joins her. He hates the cold. He will not say so. It is not beautiful, he says.
It is a boundary, she says. Between what and what? Between order and a grave, she says. Which side is which? He asks. She lowers the slate. I do not know, she says. He nods. He likes her more for that.
Abaddon oversees a raid on a dock that grows too fast. He loves the vector mirth of it. He does not love the way the dock moves when he looks away. Guns fire. Vader does not appear. A field appears instead. Shots scattering off it make a sound like hail on plate. He pulls. Abaddon says. His wing obeys. He does not lose many men. He does not gain any ground. He returns to the flagship and says nothing for 3 hours. Then he says, "This war will not be fought by habit." Horus hears him and is pleased.
The council breaks into factions inside factions. A, the bold,
Strike now, end it before it learns us. B, the patient, learn its edges, then cut. C, the pious, bind it with gods who love oaths. Horus listens. He allows argument to sharpen without drawing.
Vader walks into a chamber under the ice. Pause short. It is quiet. Pause short. It is not dead. Pillars hold up a ceiling that remembers stars it has not seen for 1,000,000 years. Pause short. Light crawls along the floor like a snake learning legs. A shape rises. Pause short. Metal. Pause short. Green fire inside its bones. Pause short. A face carved to make fear feel honest. Pause short. You wake. Pause short. Vader says. Pause. Pause short. We endure. Pause short, the shape says. Pause short. Its voice is a chorus played through a throat of brass. Pause. Pause short. I offer parley. Pause short, Vader says. Pause. Pause short. Define.
Common purpose, Vader says. Limited accord. Shared enemies. Temporary silence between us. The shape considers. It has time to do that. You are not of this song, it says. I will still sing, Vader says. Your life is wrong metal, it says. My life is purpose, he says. Silence holds while machines in the walls decide whether to remember a word for trust.
The shape's eyes lower and raise. It is assent without warmth. Give target, it says. Vader breathes in. He sees Horus in snow. He sees ships like knives around a world that is learning new math. Not target, Vader says. Balance. The shape processes. Define, it says again. Power that does not rot the hand that holds it, Vader says. Your hand is wrought and iron, the shape says. Then I am well suited, Vader says.
Silence again. Then, we will rise, the shape says. It is not a pledge, it is a weather report. Horus stands before a window that looks like war. He can feel the circle in the valley now. He can feel the tomb below it, waking. 2 fronts, Malachurst says. 3, Horus says. Malachurst counts. He reaches the same sum. Vader, he says. The tomb, Horus says.
And the Father. They say together, do not smile. Do we break this world? Abaddon asks. Not yet, Horus says. Why not? Erebus asks, already knowing he will hate the answer. Because it is teaching us, Horus says. Ships gather. Some with ocula they mean to keep. Some with marks they will never wear again. Some with none at all, because the owners of such ships serve only motion. Vader's circle gains skin. Guns slot into mouths. A rib of light threads the equator and thrums like a calm heart. The tomb opens a little more.
Scarabs write the new math into old halls. a king without a pulse, sits down on a throne that missed him and does not show it. The warp over the world becomes a mirror that refuses to lie. The Force threads it with new words. Sorcerers learn them the hard way. Horus and Vader meet one more time. No blades, no roar. Your circle will bring ruin, Horus says. It will bring order, Vader says. Order that forgets people, Horus says. People broke order, Vader says. Horus looks at the tomb mouth behind him. Do you know what they will do? He asks. Yes, Vader says. And you still call them? Horus asks. I do, Vader says. Then we are done talking, Horus says. We are, Vader says. They step back. The air releases its held breath.
The crescendo builds. Voxnets buzz and stack until they sound like a choir that has lost its page. Titans wake their cores and whisper old names for walking. Orbital plates swing and lock and show teeth. Horus raises a hand on the bridge. His captains still. Remember, he says. Test. Measure. Strike. Leave room for learning. Malaghurst nods. He thinks, room for betrayal, too. He does not say it. Sarah tightens her glove and raises her slate. She will draw this, and then hide the drawing where eyes cannot flatten it. Abaddon secures his helm and feels nothing but the angle of the coming cut. Under the ice, the Necron legions align. Green light becomes lines. Lines become ranks. Ranks become a promise kept by machines. Vader stands at the mouth and looks up through earth and snow and ice and air and orbit and intention. He breathes in. He breathes out. Begin, he says. The tomb answers with a sound like a star tightening a fist. Above, the Death Star turns 1 degree. Guns align by math and will. In the void, Horus's fleet bows without kneeling. Rows shift. Gaps open where traps will live. The world holds still. Then it moves. End of Part 1. The battle forms. If you want the full 10,000-word arc to play out, I'll continue immediately with the opening salvo, the three-front melee, Council fractures mid-fight, Vader's force warp strain and vocal scar. Abaddon's vector feint, Serra's on-ground rescue corridor, the final wide shot as the Death Star fires a proof of concept at a Necron obelisk rather than a city, triggering an answer older than both empires. The first shot is a test. A cruiser in Heres's second line angles a battery away from...
Pause short. Blue fire walks across the atmosphere and kisses a ridge. Pause short. Stone lifts. Pause short. Snow becomes steam. Pause short. Nothing else moves. Pause short. Response? Pause short. Abaddon asks. Pause. Pause short. Minimal. Pause short. Amarandus says. Pause short. Telemetry shows fields flexing around the orbital circle. Pause. Ground assets reposition. Pause. No civilian signatures. Pause. Short. Pause. Short. Again.
This time, a different ship fires. New angle. New duration. A spear of light scratches the sky and leaves a scar that will weather into myth. On the surface, flat-wing fighters rise from the valley. They stack in calm layers. They do not chase. Hold, Horus says. He waits to see if patience has a shape. Vader stands under the circle. He listens. He feels the test shots the way a surgeon feels a cough in the room next door. Calibration, he says. Technicians repeat the word like a spell. Numbers adjust. Guns move 1 degree. He lifts his hand, and the wind changes its route down the valley. Snow drifts from a gantry at the exact moment a coil must not be chilled. A grey-clad controller swallows. She did not see a gesture. She heard a word that sounded like order, and realized the storm had learned to obey. Report, Vader says.
Field integrity, 96, she says. Condenser arrays, 10 hours to tolerance. Make it 8, he says. She nods. Her hands stop shaking because the world agrees with her on at least one number. The opening salvo begins by accident. A raider on Horus's left wing misreads a vector and clips a patrol. The patrol holds position. It does not fire. The raider's wingman fires to cover the mistake. The patrol returns fire this time, and the dance begins. Do not commit, Horus says. Copy, Abaddon says.
His voice is a blade laid on felt. He takes 3 squadrons into a shallow curve and lets the curve collapse behind the patrol like a purse. He does not close the purse. He leaves it open enough to feel like a choice. 2 patrol ships escape. 1 does not. Enough, Horus says. Abaddon pulls back. He gives the dead no sermon. He gives the living a clear corridor home.
In the valley, Sarah crouches with a ground team behind wreckage that used to be a loader. She is not there to fight. She is there to draw a corridor through the battle that people can use. Landmarks, she says to her slate. Tell me what you see, says Melhurst over a line that is not official. Spine of the valley. Ducts under the ice. Heat vents every 50. Green beacons inside the tomb mouth, brighter each hour. Drone controls on a lazy 8. Construction lights at constant lux, even when weather rises. We can move under the vents if we time it.
Why move? Malaghurst asks. Because people will need out, she says. Which people? Whoever realizes they want to live more than they want to be right, she says. Malaghurst is quiet. He has heard a sermon. He files it under tactics. On the bridge, the council fractures in useful ways.
The bold want to strike the valley now, burn the docks, take the circle before it hardens. The patient want to cut the supply lines in orbit, starve the build, leave the planet to freeze itself. The pious want to call a god by a longer name and bind the new power with old chains. Speak, Horus says. Erebus does. He prays without closing his eyes. He promises obedience if the right oath is signed. He promises ruin if it is not. Abaddon does not look at him. Emirandus does not breathe while he speaks.
Maloghurst watches Sera's small reflection in a console and wonders why she has chosen to stand where she stands. Horus nods once when Erebus finishes. He nods again when Abaddon says vectors. He nods a third time when Sera's corridor appears on a holo as a thin blue thread. We will do all of it, he says.
Vader kneels in a quiet chamber. The Force lives here like a pool under weight. The warp rubs against it like a river against stone. His breath rasps. He feels the room push back. He is drawing bridges where there were none. He is burning muscle he cannot spare. Cost, he says. He does not flinch from the word. A panel glows. A controller speaks into a grid of light. Lord, your readings... Proceed, he says. He lays his will through the pool and into the river. The two sing against each other and leave a friction that tastes like iron in the mouth.
His voice deepens a fraction. A small piece of it goes hollow. It will not return. He accepts the scar. Abaddon's feint looks like honesty. He runs 3 wings straight at the dock. He runs 1 low along the valley floor. The dock lifts a field. His 3 wings lift away. The field lowers to save energy.
The low wing slides under it and paints the base of a gantry. A bright circle blooms. The gantry sags. Drones scatter like startled birds, then reform like a school.
Enough,
Abaddon says. He does not press. He wants to know how fast the field can move. He has learned a number. Sera moves her team under the heat vents while the valley speaks war over their heads. Her breath clouds. Her fingers forget to be warm. She counts steps. She marks doors. She does not use names out loud. They find workers, some grey-clad,
Some from off-world, with a look of men who took a contract because the math said do it. Corridor, she says. They go. They do not ask for a badge. She gives them the shape of the path and the timing of the vents and the way to hold a child so sound does not echo. Why are you doing this? One man asks. Because buildings fall, she says. He nods. He has worked enough sites to know that truth. On the ice plain, 2 small forces collide away from the valley. It is not decisive. It is important. Word-bearer sorcerers chant, and find that some chant goes nowhere now. The warp splits around the valley like a river around an island. They learn new routes while being shot at. Some die learning. A formation of flat-winged fighters cuts through the sky like a sentence that refuses adjectives. They turn without turning. They break without heat bloom. A single heavy walker from Horus's allies sets its feet and speaks with mass drivers. It does not care where you learned your physics. Mass remains stubborn. One flat wing falls. The others learn the walker's cadence and do not fly through that beat again. Horus watches feeds. He watches the small battle the way a smith watches a test blade bend. "Edge," he says.
"Whose?" Malaghurst asks. "Ours," Horus says. "For now." Vader returns to the tomb. He stands at the mouth, and the mouth looks back. He speaks without posture. He is past that today. "Rise with me," he says. "Define against whom?" says the cold choir below. "Everyone who refuses order," he says. "That is most," the choir says. "Then we will have work," he says. Green light threads stone. Ramps extend. Ranks align. It is not a march yet. It is the decision that makes one possible. On the bridge, a vote that is not written happens. It happens in eye flickers and in how men stand. It happens in the way Horus says a word and who answers in what order. "Commit?" Abaddon asks. "Commit a little," Horus says. He sends 2 companies to bite the valley. He keeps 8 back. He angles cruisers to pinch orbit. He orders artillery not to fire unless someone is counting for them. Erebus smiles too soon. He thinks he has won a point in a game Horus is not playing. The Death Star circle hardens. Skin becomes armor. Armor becomes doctrine. "Test," Vader says. The controller swallows. "On what target, Lord?" Vader does not point at a city. He points down into the Tomb Valley at a Necron obelisk on a ridge. "Here," he says. "Friendly?" she asks, because words still matter to someone in the room. "Necessary," he says. Fields align. Guns speak. A beam cuts the air slow, like a hand drawing a line across a chalkboard no one asked to be written on. The obelisk takes the hit. It glows. It does not fall. It sings back. The song is not for humans. It is for machines that remember a war older than stars that humans named. Under the ice, the choir lifts its heads. "Not enemy," it says. "Demonstration," Vader says. "Acceptable," the choir says. They adjust a number that was never written down. Horus watches the beam from orbit. He feels numbers change in his hands. "Resilience," Abaddon says. "Alignment," Amaranda says. "Language," Sarah says on a small channel. Horus nods and does not ask her to explain. He has learned that she only uses the word when it matters. The second salvo begins by choice. Horus orders a push at the valley mouth. Abaddon runs vectors that look like a braid and hold like rope.
Artillery walks fire along the ridge where drones stage. Sorcerers lay fog where censors like to see.
Serra's corridor holds. Civilians move. They do not run. They move. Vader steps onto the ice. Horus steps onto the ice. They meet without ritual. They stand within the sound of distant guns. Pause. You think you are mercy, Vader says. Pause. I think I am choice, Horus says. You think choice saves anyone? Vader says. I have seen it, Horus says. Vader lifts a hand. Horus braces. Nothing happens to him. He hears Nettles scream behind his left shoulder. He does not look. He does not give the sound ownership of his eyes. He answers with pressure in the air. The force bends. The warp nods and continues its own business. They are learning one another faster now. Withdraw, Horus says. No, Vader says. Then bleed, Horus says, without hate. Then order, Vader says, without joy. The fight around them snaps. A flatwing dies.
A raider loses a third of a wing and flies as if missing that piece made it honest. A walker steps into a hole that did not exist a breath before it moved. Serafino's corridor flexes. She gives up one vent and takes another. She adjusts faces through the gap without counting them out loud.
Marlog Horst watches her feed and understands that he will need her later in rooms without snow. He writes her name down where he writes such names. Vader's voice drops another notch when he reaches for the pool and the river at once. He feels his lungs like he did once long ago in fire. He feels the room push back. He takes the cost and spends it. Walkers shudder, guns falter and return. The circle in the sky tightens its skin. Horus feels the new hollow in that voice and mocks it. He does not smile. He files it as risk. Signal from below, Amarandus says.
Green light rises from the tomb mouth in a flat beam that bleeds into the sky and makes the aurora step aside. Symbols write themselves along its edge. No human can read them. The meaning arrives anyway. We are here. We are awake. We will make our own choices. 3 fronts, Maloghurst says again.
More, Segira says. She looks at the corridor and knows she has built a 4th. Horus lifts his blade a handspan. He lowers it again. Stand down, he says to his own line. Abaddon does not argue out loud. He pulls back a fraction. His pilots breathe without saying thanks. Vader lowers his hand. He lets the snow land on cloth. He lets the air that belongs to this world touch him and refuses to name it mercy. Tomorrow, Horus says. Soon, Vader says. They turn. They do not show each other their backs. The ice holds.
Night falls without asking for permission. It brings a pause, the size of one breath, shared by many. Saedra ends her shift, sitting on a crate with a heat pack under her coat. She draws the circle. She draws the tomb mouth. She draws a corridor as a thin blue line that keeps choosing to exist. Maloghurst stops near her and does not say she should sleep. He knows better. Tomorrow, he says. Soon, she says, and almost smiles. Under the ice, the Necrons finish a sentence that took an age to begin. We will rise with you. The choir says to the dark shape at the door. For how long? Vatas asks. Until balance, they say. He accepts terms from a species that does not know how to lie. It relaxes something in him that has not relaxed in years. He turns toward the sky and feels ships arrange themselves into will.
In orbit, Horus studies ranges. He moves the third line closer to the second without telling anyone it is courage. He rotates reserve wings through hot zones without calling it mercy. Abaddon changes a plan in mid-air because a pilot told the truth in the right tone. He learns a new respect for a dock he still plans to burn.
Erebus prays, and is angry that the prayer did not move the world as much as a woman with a slate did. He promises himself a Styx he cannot yet name. Dawn. The Death Star has skin. Its equator glows with a line that looks like a thought, becoming a rule. The tomb's obelisks answer each other across ice canyons, like a choir counting in a time signature that hurts the head if you listen wrong. Horus's fleet tightens. Vader's fighters ascend. Necron ranks rise in green steps. The battle is about to start. The world holds the breath it earned.